In this lecture section, we'll revisit some of the slides we saw earlier from Chapter 3 of the tutorial manual that relate to the audience that uses GIS, or the intended audience for GIS products. And the reason for this is that it clearly relates to your project assignment on creating a good and a bad map. So specifically in this presentation, we'll look at map audiences and map layouts and how the two relate to one another. First of all, map audiences. Two categories of map audiences exist: the general public and the trained analyst. The purpose of mapping for the general public is to communicate information for basic general reference purposes. Frequency of use would tend to be low and irregular, and the geographic knowledge the audience would assume to have would be general. In other words, you might look at highway maps as a good example of a general purpose kind of map that would be made for an audience with a basic general level of geographic knowledge. Topographic maps can function the same way, although they require a little bit more in-depth familiarity with geographic features and methods of symbology. You might see thematic maps come into this as well, especially maps that are presented using basic, simple data with simple statistics. At the trained analyst level, the purpose is more exploratory: identification and diagnosis of spatial patterns and problems. The frequency of use of geospatial data and mapping would be high and regular, and we have to assume that the geographic knowledge would be somewhat specialized. One of our challenges is that just because someone is an expert in using GIS, or that they can analyze maps at an expert level, it doesn't mean that they are an expert in all the topics that get mapped. So you have to take that into consideration when you look at options for map layout and the inclusion of information needed to interpret maps. First, we'll just compare the audiences of the trained analyst and general public in terms of how maps are used for exploration or for presentation. For exploration, the audience would be more of a trained analyst, where the purpose is to explore a problem through visual thinking. Maps provide a graphical way of describing and depicting data and analyzing information, and this can help someone who has a higher level of training and understanding the importance of spatial data to help solve a particular problem. Typically, details will be fine, and symbols may be quite abstract in terms of their use in a map, because the map user has more experience with using different types of map symbols. At the presentation level, the general public is the audience, and the purpose is to communicate more general patterns, and the advantages of using geospatial technology in maps is that this creates a believable and interpretable set of information that people can use to understand the world around them. Levels of detail may be more coarse than they are at the exploratory phase, and symbols will typically be more mimetic, which means that, for example, if you symbolize a capital, you would need to do it using a building that would be recognizable as a capital, or a railroad with crosshatches, or colors as opposed to grayscale, and so on. In terms of map layouts, I wanted to look at a couple of different examples here. Here's layout example 1. It shows U.S. population by county, and the map is the most prominent element. The map title and subtitle are clear. You can tell when the data was collected, and it answers the information of what, where, and when. There's a legend that shows you the data ranges, the data sources are noted, and the dates are there, and the map author is there, although that's not a requirement. You might also put a scale bar and a north arrow on a map layout like this, although it's also not a requirement when the feature is clearly recognizable. Here's layout example 2. This is more at a graphic scale, a large scale map, where you might or might not have a north arrow, but I'd recommend doing it when you have something at the operational scale of a city. So for example here, part of downtown Pittsburgh. A neat line forms the rectangular boundary around the entire map layout. And other elements are there. They include data sources. You might have inset maps, data tables, charts, or photographs as well. Here's another layout example that shows multiple maps. You've worked with layouts like this during the semester. In this case, we see two thematic maps with the same single data range, and we don't have the other elements such as a north arrow or scale bar because they're recognizable features, the 48 contiguous states of the U.S. Notice here the maps dominate the layout. Here's an example of a bad layout where you have a poor choice of color. The colors don't follow any logical order. In the case of data like this, you would want a monochromatic color scale that clearly shows that you are increasing in intensity with value, that is getting darker as you go higher in terms of value. You see here a misplaced and large scale bar and a misplaced and large north arrow, and then the map itself takes on a lower sense of priority for the layout. By contrast, in this better layout, the city takes up most of the map. The legend is tucked into an area out of the way. You don't have to have a north arrow or a scale bar on this one. And the title is clear to read. The source is available there. You can tell exactly what this is mapping. And this is the end of the lecture, comparing good and bad maps. Hopefully that will give you some more ideas and remind you of some of the things to think about when you create your own good map and bad map out of data that you've been using this semester.